Catch up quick on this week's top stories with Debrief.
Renewed fighting, renewed atrocities.
Israel says it is conducting extensive strikes across the Gaza Strip.
Almost every city in Gaza was attacked.
Hundreds of bodies rushed to hospital. Countless wounded.
At least 130 children are among those killed, and that makes yesterday's attacks really one of the bloodiest in this war.
This is all after Israel cut off food and medical supplies 2 weeks ago. A bag of sugar is now 5 times the price, from $1 to $5. And a 12-kilogram cylinder of gas for cooking now costs $406.24.
Israel attacks a UN facility in Gaza, killing one aid worker and injuring several others.
Israel's defense minister threatens to annex parts of Gaza as the army pushes deeper into several cities across the Strip.
It's non-stop artillery and tank fire targeting northwestern Gaza Strip, the Beit Lahia, as well as eastern Khan Yunis, eastern and southern Rafah, and eastern Gaza City. Of course, this comes after yesterday's new evacuation orders for the northern Gaza Strip town of Beit Hanun, as well as much of eastern Khan Yunis.
Israeli strikes destroyed the Turkish-Palestinian Friendship Hospital in central Gaza. Built by Turkey, it was the only cancer facility in the Strip.
Trump has claimed credit for the Gaza ceasefire that was reached in January, but later said he didn't have a problem with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu resuming the war.
Hamas has fired back for the first time since Israel resumed its attacks. The armed wing of the group, the Qassam Brigade, said it launched 3 rockets at Tel Aviv.
Outside the White House, a small but growing demonstration.
On Tuesday, we saw about 50,000 people take to the streets of Tel Aviv. On Wednesday, yesterday, we saw about 100,000 people take to the streets of West Jerusalem.
Donald Trump has ordered strikes against Yemen's Houthis because of the group's attacks against shipping in the Red Sea.
Multiple explosions have been reported in different locations.
This would be the first large-scale military action taken under Trump's new presidency.
In Yemen, at least 4 U.S. strikes have hit the city of Hodeidah. The area houses the port and headquarters of the naval forces. The U.S. has ramped up its attacks on Yemen's Houthis since Saturday.
Dozens dead and many injured, including women and children being pulled from the rubble in the capital, Sana'a.
An airstrike in the northern province of Sana'a also claimed the lives of civilians.
In return, the group has repeatedly attacked a U.S. aircraft carrier and twice launched missiles towards Israel.
The tit-for-tat strikes between the US and Houthis in Yemen suggest neither side is prepared to back down.
American aggression doesn't scare us, and we will not give up on Gaza whatever the cost.
The naval blockade is in return for the humanitarian blockade on Gaza. It will result in Israel's losing billions of dollars.
Hundreds of thousands of Yemenis, they came out here in the capital Sana'a and elsewhere across Yemen to voice support for the Yemeni group's military actions in support of Palestine.
Trump has vowed to destroy Yemen's Houthis. On his social media platform, President Trump said, quote, "They will be completely annihilated," further warning Iran to stop sending them large levels of supplies.
This is not about regime change in the Middle East. This is about putting American interests first.
Trump has said that he will hold Iran fully accountable for attacks by Yemen's Houthis against Israel and against shipping. Khamenei today said that Iran has no proxies in the region, and the resistance forces in the region, including Yemen's Houthis, act independently.
Here's the news in brief, where we bring you even more top stories. Starting off in Sudan, the National Army has turned the tables in Khartoum, retaking the presidential palace and other government offices occupied for more than 2 years by the Rapid Support Forces, or RSF. It's just the latest of several Sudanese army gains in the east, but the RSF still controls parts of Khartoum and western Sudan. The UN says at least 28,000 people dead and 14 million displaced since April 2023 makes it the world's worst humanitarian crisis. And there's little sign of relief in the Democratic Republic of Congo, as Tuesday's Angola peace talks between the government and the M23 rebels fell through after the rebels pulled out at the last minute. DRC President Felix Tshisekedi and Rwandan President Paul Kagame met in Doha on Wednesday for more talks mediated by Qatar. Both called for an immediate and unconditional ceasefire in eastern Congo, but the rebels were having none of it as they continued fighting on Thursday, moving further into North Kivu. Their latest conquest, the town of Walikale.
Civilians here in Goma who expressed a level of disappointment that these peace talks did not make any progress. But we've also spoken to Corneille Nangaa, the head of the AFC.
There's insecurity. There's not a state. And there are people who are being discriminated. The other people are being jailed. Even ourselves, like here, we have American sanctions, we have European sanctions, but we also, when you look at in Kinshasa, they say we are sentenced. All those reasons makes us say that we have to fight ourselves.
And EU leaders have had multiple talks on a strategy for regional defense and peace between Russia and Ukraine. But the spotlight was on 2 phone calls. Trump talked to Russia's President Putin on Tuesday and Ukraine's President Zelensky on Wednesday. Russia agreed not to hit Ukrainian infrastructure for 30 days, pending a few clarifications before hitting Ukraine with hundreds of drone strikes. Trump, meanwhile, urged Ukraine to give the U.S. its nuclear power plants for protection. Zelensky said it was about only one Russian-occupied plant and that Kiev would not be giving it away.
This latest significant attack on a gas pumping facility in the Suja region in Kursk. The Russian Defense Ministry was very quick to point the finger at blame directly at Ukraine, saying it was a provocation and trying to totally undermine the United States peace process plan. Well, right back at Russia, Ukraine was simply saying it had nothing to do with that. That was complete nonsense.
Crossing to the Middle East, Syria's dust-up with Lebanon along the border has ended for now, with both sides agreeing to a ceasefire on Monday. And why were they fighting? Hezbollah stood accused of kidnapping and killing 3 Syrians and denied doing so. Reports suggest Lebanese officials saw them as smugglers.
Smugglers are working on both sides. Neither the Syrians nor the Lebanese can be comfortable with this.
The brief border battle saw 7 Lebanese soldiers killed and more than 50 people injured.
The ceasefire was brokered shortly after the Lebanese president instructed the army to retaliate. A full-blown conflict here would stretch an undersourced Lebanese army, which already faces Israeli attacks in the south, very thin. But given the bloodshed here, nobody knows if this is a peace that is going to last.
And no longer up in orbit, Sunny Williams and Butch Wilmore, 2 U.S. astronauts stranded in space, returned to Earth on Wednesday. The duo's 8-day round trip aboard the Boeing Starliner turned into a 9-month layover at the International Space Station, thanks to technical issues with their ride home. Instead of an immediate rescue, NASA put the astronauts to work experimenting and brought them back down on the next crew rotation with a SpaceX rocket. But as the drama was unfolding last year, it took another turn Earthside when Trump and his ally SpaceX CEO Elon Musk accused former U.S. President Joe Biden of abandoning the astronauts. Musk even got into arguments with veteran astronauts online. NASA officials shook off Trump's claims, saying they didn't have the need nor the budget to send a rescue spacecraft, which would cost the agency an extra $100 to $150 million. billion. But the extra 286 days in space did come with consequences for Williams and Wilmore, and not the political kind.
They've been there a long time, and so they've lost some bone density, they've lost some muscle mass simply because they haven't been working against gravity. They've probably lost some cardiovascular fitness as well, because the heart is a muscle, and that doesn't have to work as hard when you're in microgravity.
And now some climate, money, and sports.
If you watch this show a lot, you may realize we talk quite a bit about El Nino and La Nina. When the Central Pacific region experiences unusually warm waters, we have El Nino, and global temperatures tend to rise. This shift disrupts weather patterns worldwide.
The El Nino that started in June 2023 ranked among the 5 strongest ever recorded. It came with numerous heat waves, crippling losses of crops and livestock, mass human displacements, and the spread of waterborne diseases. Bangladesh faced its deadliest dengue fever outbreak in history, and a weak monsoon slashed rice production in India, Indonesia, and Thailand.
The West food crisis yet has devastated more than 27 million lives across the region. Some 21 million children in Southern Africa are malnourished.
El Nino normally occurs every 2 to 7 years, but this natural climate phenomenon has been changing, and the burning of fossil fuels has supercharged its effects, amplifying the destruction. There was a grim milestone in every month in 2024, and for the first time, global temperatures soared to 1.5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels.
London's Heathrow Airport has been shut for the day after a fire caused a major power outage, cutting electricity in the area. Officials say the UK's busiest airport will stay closed until at least midnight. More than 100 flights have been rerouted, and the disruption could affect over 145,000 people in the coming days.
The disruption for passengers, both en route to Heathrow, being dislocated, and then passengers whose flights are cancelled, this could go on for days. The disruption cost is going to run into the millions. It's very hard to determine exactly what it is, but certainly well into the many, many millions.
With the playoffs just around the corner, a new addition has transformed the Dubs into an average team to a real contender.
Picking a champion in the NBA is tough. But this season, the standings show 2 teams are above and beyond the rest. The Cavs in the East and the Thunder in the West. But February's trade deadline has thrown in a curveball. Since 6-time All-Star Jimmy Butler has joined the Golden State Warriors, the California club has had the league's second-best record. And they're passing the eye test too, with a crowd-pleasing form of basketball that's reminiscent of their championship-winning ways in 2022.
It's easy. I've said time and time again, you pass the ball to the open man, you make a play for somebody else, and then good things happen. We just got so many guys that can do so many things well that sometimes it's almost too unselfish.
Jimmy's numbers on the Dubs aren't necessarily eye-popping. He's averaging barely more than 16 points and only around 6 assists